Beyond Perfection, Reframing Intimacy, Identity and Representation. So Cindy, Kate and Katie will be exploring the role brands, advertisers and platforms play in creating healthier and more honest representations of relationships, how media shapes worth and the resulting impact on well-being, equality and human connection. So over to you, Sparkly Sparkerson.
First up, obviously, you can all see what I'm wearing.
How much do we love what she's
yeah,
wearing?
thanks, guys.
Check that out.
Do you know what? I think so I wanted to make a point. So me and Kate spoke before we've come to chat to Cindy today. And this comes from you, Cindy, by the way, is the importance of standing out, being different, wearing things that make you feel fucking fabulous and get you noticed. So one massive tip for all of you for Cannes this week, I might just keep this on today. It might be a bit too hot. But wear stuff that gets you noticed, especially if you're on stage or even just walking down the street, because it's a great way for people to say hi to you. So first of all...
and I'd like to just amplify that message, because when I started up BBH New York, now golly, 28 years ago, it was when Tom Ford was in his heyday designing for Gucci, and that was back in the day when, you know, I was a high-flying, highly paid ad exec, so I had the money to spend at Gucci. And I loved his clothes because they made me feel really confident going out there and starting up an ad agency in the world's toughest advertising marketplace, Madison Avenue. But equally, I made the point that Kate has just made, which is, you know, I would say to my team, when you're pitching for client business, and there are 20 agencies on the pitch list, and their presentations are blurring in front of the client's eyes, being the one where the agency CEO is dressed head to toe in black leather can be just as much of a standout as your brilliant strategy or great creative work. So absolutely, this week at Cannes, dress to impress, dress to stand out, dress to get noticed, dress to make your point.
Love.
I have to say, I do. It does look a bit like I didn't get the brief, I think, next to you, Katie. I do feel a bit
I
like
didn't either.
Theresa May next to you.
I'm just making it all about me, which is actually another important message, because this is your life. You should make it all about you. Like, I think, especially as women, I can see there are lots and lots of women in the audience. Like, sometimes we forget to make it about ourselves. And it's not about fucking showing off. It's about putting yourself first, because if you don't, no other fucker's going to. I promise you that. So that is also a really important thing. Right, we haven't really introduced ourselves. For those of you that don't know me, hi, my name's Katie Street. As well as wearing glittery clothes, I do actually run a marketing agency. We work for B2B, mainly with tech companies like Shopify, Adobe. I also am one of the partners here with my podcast, Marketing in the Madness. Kate, do you want to do a quick intro?
Yep, I do. Thank you. I'm Kate Chaundy. I'm an associate director at Propeller Group. We're a B2B PR and growth marketing agency networked in London and New York. We are a very proud partner of the Empower Cafe, which I think everyone can agree looks incredible today. And what a fantastic guest to have in this newly revamped space as Cindy. So, yeah, we're very excited. Thank you, Cindy.
We were going to go over to Kate to kind of big up Cindy, but she's kind of already done it. Cindy, do you want to big up yourself? Like, you obviously, for anyone, does anyone in the audience not know who Cindy is? Don't put your hand up. Oh, fucking hell, you all know her. But she is a force to be reckoned with. Someone that I, certainly as a woman now in my 40s, like really, really look up to, because you have reinvented yourself many times. You've never been afraid to be unapologetically you. I was actually listening. I'm going way off brief, Kate, so just ignore all our notes. We're just gonna chat. I was listening to your podcast with Davina, and this is something that I've struggled with, because I don't know if all of you know this, but my husband went to prison when my daughter was 13 months old. And I think ever since then, and that was when I was 26, great age for your husband, and he just went and didn't come back till she was 7 years old. But I think I don't know if I did want to get married, but I did marry him. And then ever since then, I always thought that I should get married. I should have this typical family. My daughter's 18 now, by the way, and just about to go to uni and leave me. But I loved listening to that podcast, because you were like, I never wanted that be a wife, to have that traditional at-home family that wasn't for you. How? And that's actually really given me confidence, because the last 3 years I've been single as fuck and I fucking love it. I don't have anyone telling me what to do, anyone to report to. I get to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And I brought my daughter up to be amazing and probably way better than if her dad been at home. So yay for that. So tell me why, because I don't think my daughter will want to conform. She doesn't. She's already told me she's not bothered about having kids. She's all about her career. What? Because you did have more of a traditional family. What do you think made you want to be different?
Honestly, I didn't want to be different consciously in the way that you suggest. And, what I would say, everybody, is, thank you so much for the lovely introduction. I do a lot of interviews and panels where people, the moderator or the podcast host will say to me, so Cindy, how did you become such a provocateur? How are you confident enough to be this controversial? You are so outspoken. You are so bold. And I never use any of those words about myself. Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm just living and speaking my values. And the fact that other people think that is provocative, that is controversial, that is outspoken, is actually an indictment of the society we live in. Because if we all felt able to speak our truth, I wouldn't stand out because of that. So bear that in mind going forwards, and especially this week, speak your truth. But, to Katie's point, just for those of you who aren't fully aware of this, I am, as Katie says, somebody who has never, ever wanted to be married. I have never wanted children. Very glad I always knew that, as opposed to finding out the hard way by actually having them. I adore being single. I am not a relationship person. I cannot wait to die alone. And I date younger men casually and recreationally for sex. And I am deliberately very public about all of this because we do not have enough role models in our society, for women and, by the way, also for men, that demonstrate you can live your life very differently to the way that you're expected to and still be amazingly happy. And I'm one of the happiest people I know. And so I would really love many more people to just stop and think and ask themselves, what would really make me happy? Because it may not be what your parents want you to do, what all your friends around you are doing at the same time, what popular culture tells you you should want and be doing. And so ask yourself that question really, really honestly. What would really make me happy? And you might be quite surprised by the answers that come back.
I bloody love that.
I loved it when I heard you on a podcast. I think someone asked you, what is your definition of self-care? And you said, not having a husband or children.
Yep. Absolutely. And also, so I am that very rare person who has no desire whatsoever to be in love. And not wanting to be in love is enormously time and cost efficient. Because, to give you just one everyday example, I'll be reading Women's Magazine, and there is that big double-page spread on how to find the one, how to make sure your relationship is really fulfilling. I'll go, oh, not interested. And I don't have to waste time reading it. I don't read all those self-help books. I don't spend money on those self-help books. I don't spend money on dating apps and matchmakers. Not wanting to be in love is very time and cost efficient.
Do you know what? And there's lots of stats to back that up. Sorry to all the married people in the audience. Well, actually, if you're a man, it is scientifically proven that you will live longer, be richer and happier by having a wife. If you're a wife and you're married to a man, you will be poorer, you won't live as long. It's actually backed up by science, because we wear too many hats, and we're the caregivers, the homemakers, the going out. We all now have careers. I mean, look at all the amazing women in this audience. So yeah, just highlighting that.
And actually, I just want to expand on what Kate referenced, because I think not everyone heard that. So I was on a podcast some time back, which was actually specifically about entrepreneurs and the stressful lives we lead. And the lovely woman host said to me very earnestly, so Cindy, obviously, you know, you have a ton of startup stress building Make Love Not Porn. Do you have a daily self-care routine? And I went, oh yeah, no, absolutely. I absolutely have a daily self-care routine. My daily self-care routine is I have no husband, I have no children. That is self-care of the highest order.
You mentioned Make Love Not Porn. I think obviously you're such an impressive figure in the advertising industry, and you've been to Cannes many times. You're judging this year again. But there was a point in your career where you decided to do something quite brave, and you really took a sort of wrecking ball to the industry on sexism and ageism. And you did a TED Talk, and then you launched Make Love Not Porn, which I'm sure everyone, or most people in the audience will know and will have heard you talk about. But for those who maybe don't, do you want to explain what that was and why? It's 16 years in now, right?
17. And actually, I do want to make a point coming out of that about this week at Cannes Lions. So everybody, please, if you like what I do, go to makelovenotporn.com and put your money where your mouth is. Sign up and subscribe. Starts at $10 a month. It's really, really affordable. But Make Love Not Porn is the business I started precisely because I date younger men. And because I realized 18, 19 years ago now, through having sex with younger men, that when we don't talk openly and honestly about sex in the real world, porn becomes sex education by default in not a good way. And so I created Make Love Not Porn effectively to be what Facebook would be if it allowed you to openly, healthily, socially, sexually self-express, which it clearly doesn't. The way to think about us is, if porn is the Hollywood blockbuster movie, Make Love Not Porn is the badly needed documentary. We are a unique window onto the funny, messy, loving, wonderful sex we all have in the real world. And what we're doing is we are socializing, normalizing, destigmatizing sex, bringing it out of the shadows into the sunlight to promote consent, communication, good sexual values and behavior. We are literally sex education through real-world demonstration. And our mission at Make Love Not Porn is to help end rape culture globally. Now that may sound like, thank you. That may sound like a very big mission, but we have 14 years of proof of concept at a micro level. At Make Love Not Porn, we help end rape culture by doing something very simple nobody else anywhere is doing. We show you how wonderful, great consensual, communicative sex is in the real world. Our social sex videos role model good sexual values and good sexual behavior. And here's the key part. We make all of that aspirational versus what you see in porn and popular culture. One young man wrote to us saying, your website makes me want to have sex in a more grown-up, honest, and respectful way. Another man left a comment saying, this video makes me want to be a better man in the bedroom and in life. And a couple of things coming out of that are important for you to hear at Cannes Lions. The first is, I am doing something that I've exhorted our industry to do for literally decades and still no one is doing. Because we have a huge opportunity to reinvent aspirational culture. And I'm saying that to you in our industry because we invented aspiration. We made people want things. But, you know, back in the Mad Men days, we made you want material things. We made you want the right watch, the right car, the right house. Today, there is a huge opportunity to reinvent aspirational culture around things that will massively improve people's lives and build a really strong emotional bond between them and the brands who understand that. And, you know, I'll give you just one example. Again, I've talked about this to our industry for years, but in our industry, we deal in stereotypes. And there's a very practical reason for that, because stereotypes are really useful creative shorthand. When you have 30 seconds to communicate something, stereotypes help shortcut the process. But what this means is that we have reinforced the stereotype of a heteronormative marriage/relationship as man as strong, confident breadwinner, and woman as warm, caring, nurturing homemaker. I want to see us reinvent aspiration around relationships to showcase and represent the relationship role model of today, which is a partnership of equals. Because today, no matter what gender that partnership, both halves of the couple work, because you have to, because of the economy, which requires completely new forms of negotiation as to who does the housework, who does the childcare, what happens when one half of the couple has a job and the other doesn't, what happens when one half of the couple earns more and the other earns less, and imagine how different the world would be when we hold up a relationship, a partnership of equals as aspirational. Imagine a number of men who would aspire to stay at home, look after the children, be house husbands, as opposed to what's happening today, which is they're looked down on by men and women alike. And again, what we do creatively, and by the way, very importantly with humor, can really reinvent that aspiration. I like to quote in this context, are you all familiar with the amazing American Asian comedian Ali Wong? Have you? Yeah. So I think it's in her first stand-up special on Netflix. And by the way, if you've never watched Ali Wong, go to Netflix, watch them all. I think in Hard Knock Wife, she talks about how her Asian mother got really worried because Ali was earning more than her husband. And her mother went, when you earn more than your husband, he's going to leave you. And Ali said to her mother, you know, the only kind of man who would leave a woman who earns more than he does is the kind of man who does not like free money. Imagine reframing that relationship in that light. That's the opportunity we all have. And I am doing what I talked about. I'm reinventing aspirational culture around sex. And the other point I want to make to you is, I would love you all to go out and talk about sex all week here at Cannes Lions. Because our industry does not support me. The tech industry does not support me. We are banned from advertising Make Love Not Porn on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Google, YouTube, Reddit. Look at what's on Reddit. We're banned from advertising on Reddit. Look at what's on Twitter X. We're banned from advertising there. As an industry, we need to get over our sex problem. So I would love you all just go out there this week at Cannes Lions and talk about sex.
How about next year, Empower hosts a sex party on one of the evenings, and we see if any of them might sponsor it with us. That's such a right. I'm going to dial into the sex thing, not just sex parties. I'm going to be really open and honest here. My friend sat in the front row is going to laugh at me. She's like, Katie, you overshare way too much, and I'm going to continue to do that. I have been single for 3.5 years, dated people. I haven't had sex for about 1.5 years. That's very, very sad, isn't it? But do you know, I actually genuinely want your advice here, Cindy, because I feel that I'm quite a confident, outgoing person, but for some reason, in the bedroom, I'm definitely oversharing, sorry guys, I don't always feel like that. I get shy, I get like, I don't want anyone to look at me, which is it's not me. Help me. What advice can you give me?
So first of all, it's absolutely not an issue if you've not had sex for a long time, because, and honestly, you know, I think it's especially true as we get older. Quite frankly, the more intentional you are about your sex life, the better. And by the way, that is what we are seeing with Gen Z right now. You know, I'm sure you've read all the headlines going, Gen Z are having less sex. It's not because they don't want to have sex. They're the most open generation to date, but they are intentional about the kind of sex they want to have. And by the way, you know, if you look at the extraordinary success of Heated Rivalry and Off Campus, that is celebrating the kind of great sex we all want to have, just as, by the way, every video on Make Love Not Porn is the great sex we all want to have because it's about love, intimacy, and human connection. So absolutely be intentional about your sex life. But then it's so important to know that, and you know, just starting with the absolute basics, I wish more people understood that what makes you hot as hell is you, okay? What someone is attracted to is you. your unique personality, your unique character, and then by definition, your body is hot as hell just by virtue of being yours. Okay? And, ignore the messages that popular culture sends us. You cannot be hot, attractive, unless you are this skinny, six-pack abs, look like this. It's absolute fucking bollocks. In fact, some years ago, back in the day, the UK Love Island announced their new cast lineup. This is several years ago. And it was instantly slammed for lack of racial diversity and lack of body diversity. And the producer of Love Island was interviewed about it, and he, man, obviously, made the enormous mistake of saying publicly, well, we have to cast what people find attractive. The entire internet came down on his head, including me. The Daily Mail actually published the tweet that I replied with, because what I said was, walk through any park in any big city in the summertime, look at the couples walking around, holding hands, sitting on the glass, kissing, cuddling. You see all around you every single day what people really find hot and desirable in the real world. And if that isn't reassuring and confidence-inspiring, I don't know what is. Seriously, the moment you're in bed with somebody, your body is hot as hell because it's yours, and they are pathetically grateful to be there. I mean, for crying out loud, look at her. How grateful should they be?
Thanks, Cindy. That's helped. That has helped. So I'm on the hunt this week, guys. Be careful if you're a man or a woman. Who knows?
I think that's really interesting, Cindy, because I think that you obviously you mentioned BBH in New York, and you were Advertising Women of the Year, and you spent a career, and every conversation at Cannes is talking about audiences and knowing your audience. And do you think you've had a fundamentally much bigger education on people since starting this site, even though your job was to understand audiences before? Do you feel like now you're through Make Love Not Porn, especially with men as well, the honesty they give you, you're able to truly understand what people want?
No, absolutely. Because I have a business that deals in the one area of universal human experience that nobody delves into and our industry does not acknowledge. So something like, 12 years ago, I did a seminar here at Cannes on porn, youth, and brands, the biggest socio-cultural influence on young people today that we don't talk about. Stacked out audience, especially with the younger members of our industry in the Debussy Theatre. And so I said to the audience, show of hands, please, how many of you in the audience are strategic planners? So a whole bunch of hands went up, and I went, great. Keep your hand up if you are the kind of strategic planner who, when writing a brief for the creative department, developing a strategy for the client, writes something like this. Our target audience is an N24-year-old young man. This is where he lives, this is where he works, this is where he likes to hang out with his friends, this is how many hours of porn he watches a week, and this is how that impacts his relationship with his girlfriend. No hands. I said to the audience all those years ago, we do consumers a huge disservice when we do not bring to this universal air of human experience the same deep consumer insight, psychological analysis, depth of understanding we do every other area of consumer attitudes and behavior. So in the audience then was Flamingo Research, who are based in London. They reached out to me. They said, you're absolutely right. We do research for agencies and brands all around the world. We are never, ever asked to do any research into consumer sexuality. So they brought me back to Cannes a couple of years later to speak on a panel called Sex, the Final Marketing Frontier. And what I said to the audience on that panel was, all around the world, people have sex in cars, especially in markets where, for socio-cultural reasons, premarital sex is frowned upon. In markets where young people live at home with their parents till they get married, which, by the way, is now the UK and the US with the economy, or markets where it's traditional for whole families to live together commonly in households, so even husbands and wives can't find privacy to be intimate. So all around the world, a huge number of people having a huge amount of sex in a huge number of cars. But the automotive industry is spectacularly failing to factor that into product design and marketing. Even more fundamentally, people have sex in bed, but the mattress industry focuses all its R&D on sleep. People have sex on kitchen counters, but the kitchen industry isn't going, right, height, width, depth, got to take. The point being, there is a far broader business application of all of this than simply directly sex-related products, and brands are leaving money on the table when they do not leverage that fact.
When you make people feel at ease sexually, either literally having sex or just talking about it, what does that unlock in people? And for brands and marketers, what does it unlock for advertising? Because when you have something that's so unobtainable, like the porn industry and how popular culture depicts sex, and then you have reality, there's a big disparity then that breeds problems, isn't there?
Well, even before we address that, we have to address something much more fundamental. So, everybody, I know this will come as no surprise to the women in the audience, but this week there is going to be a shit ton of sexual harassment at Cannes. There is absolutely going to be harassment. There is going to be massively inappropriate behavior. There may even, we hope to fuck not, rapes, because that shit goes down at Cannes Lions every year. And men, especially, I mean, this is for all of you, but men, open your eyes to that. Step in, intervene. The moment you see that shit going down, stop your fellow men. And by the way, it's always men, okay? We do not have an issue with women sexually harassing men. And the important thing about that is, so years ago, AARP in the US hired me as an influencer for their Disrupt Aging program. And they gave me free rein to do what I wanted to do to disrupt aging. I went, I want to disrupt ageism in the advertising industry. And so as part of that, they sponsored 3 roundtable dinners around the US, one on the West Coast, one on the East Coast, one in Chicago, where I hosted dinners with leaders in our industry, talked to them frankly about ageism, and these were completely confidential. We extrapolated themes. That's a whole subject in itself, but the reason I'm telling you this is because, so at one of these dinners, one of the senior women around the table referenced the fact that she'd recently, her agency had pitched a brand, and when the client walked in, he turned out to be an extremely attractive older man. And so this woman said she nudged her planner and went, I'd do him. Okay, so we all laughed. Okay. Then a little later on in the evening, the man next to me, who was a very well-known ECD in our industry, and a very old friend of mine as well, he said to me, if I had made the joke she made about a female client, you would have all massively disapproved. And I said, that is because it's about power. It's about the imbalance of power. And the thing that all men should be striving towards is that when we finally have gender equality in our industry, and by the way, it shouldn't even be equality, it should be female dominance, because the primary target of all of our industry is women. We're the primary purchasers, influence purchasers, everything. You know, it's ridiculous. Our industry is more men than women, especially at the top. When we have a gender equal or more female than male industry, everybody will be able to make jokes about sex in the office and everybody will laugh because there will be no power differential and there will be no abuse of power. So I just want to make that statement because when I say go out and talk about sex at Cannes Lions, be aware you will be hit with a double standard or, you know, oh, she's asking for it or whatever. And just say, it's about who has the power. And this week, we've got the power, we're taking it back, and we're going to talk about sex.
Whoop, whoop. We have that. We always had the power. We've always had the power, but stupidly, for some reason. This is a big question, but one that troubles me a lot because I have a daughter who, from a very young age, has been incredibly determined, know what she wants. I've got nephews, nieces. Always, the girls have much stronger, more independent personalities, I would say, than boys. I mean, there's probably other parents out here maybe disagreeing with me. Look, people are leaving now. I'm really offending them. But I truly believe that, girls at a very young age are incredibly independent. They know what they want. They want to do their own thing. But then society fucks us in the arse, literally. And by the time that we're teenagers or we're entering the world of work, we've been taught, the social conditioning is so bad. Like it was, when I was younger, I'm 43, I tried to block that out then. I'm 43. And when the most terrible things happened to me at work. We used to have projectors back then, and I'd be presenting an idea and the guys would be trying to like point the projector down my tits. Like just total shit stuff that made me feel so uncomfortable and therefore like not scared to present my ideas, but like it hit me off track. They don't have someone fucking pointing a projector at their dick, do they? Like, this kind of stuff, unfortunately, happens. Maybe not as much now, but I pray to God that it's a lot better for my daughter than it is.
It's not.
No.
It's not. This shit happens even more now because of the appalling wave of anti-wokeness that is being seen as perfectly okay, and because of technology. And, this is a really important point because... the reason our mission at Make Love Not Porn is to help end rape culture globally is because the single thing keeping girls and women down is rape culture in all its forms. And what we are seeing right now with technology, intimate image abuse, deep fake sexualization, that is designed to shame girls and women out of existence, to shut girls and women up, to render them invisible, to force them off the path of their life and their career in a way that they may never be able to regain. And so I want you all to know that the only solution to that for your daughter and for all children is preemptive. And what I mean by that is parents and teachers began reaching out to me from day one of Make Love Not Porn, begging me for the 0 to 18 and beyond sex education extension of what we do. And so 11 years ago, I had the idea for MakeLoveNotPorn.academy. This is what I characterize as the Khan Academy of sex education, because Khan Academy, the online tutoring platform, tutors on every other topic under the sun except this one. EdTech, exploding, not in this area. So MakeLoveNotPorn.academy is a global aggregator hub for the best of the world sex education content that is already out there, but is being blocked, censored, and deplatformed everywhere. Had this idea 11 years ago, that's how long investors refused to fund it. We have only just built and launched an MVP because I raised a small amount of equity crowdfunding last year. And by the way, everybody, go to MakeLoveNotPorn.academy. Very early stage beta, very bare bones. Please join as a paid member. It's free for everyone to access, but you can support our work by paying for a membership. But I've said to parents for years, if you want to preserve your child's innocence for as long as possible, the answer is age-appropriate early childhood sex education as early as possible, not the opposite. And that's because the only way you'll protect your children against the exponential growth of online and digital harms is by educating them early and giving them a sense of their own agency. At Make Love Not Porn, we give women sexual agency. A woman left a comment saying, after watching this video, I felt so much more enabled and empowered in my own sexual agency. Thank you for this gift. With Make Love Porn Academy, you have the educational tools to give girls, and boys, by the way, sexual agency, as in, for the boys, stand up to what the other boys are doing, know it's wrong, and shut that shit down. We have to start this as early as possible because it's the only way. And by the way, everything with Make Love Porn Academy is important because when you are able to be open and honest with your children about sex as early as possible, ongoing through their lives, what you make them feel is that they can come and talk to you about anything. And that is the end result you want to achieve. To give you just one example of what happens when you don't do that, right now, sextortion online is massive and growing. Targets teenage boys especially. Think you're chatting to a hot girl, send her a dick pic, hot girl turns into a sextortionist, pay me this money, or I'm sending this to all your friends and family. And this is leading to very high rates of suicide amongst teenage boys because of two very unfortunate dynamics. The first is because of the shame, guilt, and embarrassment that we've imbued sex with. The moment the teenage boy gets that message, he goes, my life is over. This time's my life is over. And equally because of the shame and the embarrassment, and I cannot talk to my parents about this, combined with the other dynamic is, when you're a teenager, lack of impulse control. The shortest time lapse between a boy being sextorted and killing himself was less than 30 minutes. Make your children know they can come and talk to you about anything. Nothing is shameful, nothing is embarrassing, nothing is guilt-inducing. It is the only way to protect them and to preempt this shit.
That is such an important message, Cindy. And I think if any of us can take any of that away, like that open, honest, I really try my best with my daughter. I tell her everything. She hears about my sex life when I have one. And I feel, some people will say that I overshare, but actually it's made her the woman that she is. And she would, I hope, would tell me anything and everything, drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever it might be. And I think that's really, really important that we all try to break those barriers down at home, because it will enable a fairer, kinder world. I truly believe that in the end. Kate, we've got 10 minutes.
Okay.
Are we doing any questions?
My question is, you've spoken a lot about having conversations about sex at Cannes. So my question is, from your experience, how has your confidence in your sexual identity improved the way that you show up as a leader and a business owner? So what are the lessons you can take from your sex life and take to the world stage?
Because we're so fucked up about sex, we've defaulted it to an act, to a thing we do. It's not. It's personality. Who we are sexually is as fundamentally part of who we are as any other character trait or personality feature that we talk about much more openly. And, this is such an important part of again, why I built Make Love Not Porn. Because when we are completely at ease with ourselves as sexual beings, that is transformative. I've said for years that when I can raise the funding, and by the way, looking for paid brand partnerships, looking for sponsors on Make Love Not Porn and the educational platform, the Academy. So spread the word, hit me up. When we feel, completely free in ourselves to be who we are sexually, that absolutely translates into everything else about ourselves, to the extent that I've said for years, when Make Love Not Porn scales its social mission, you will see productivity shoot up in offices all around the world. That's the impact that feeling completely holistically at one with yourself as a sexual being can have. And so it's enormously important. Sexual energy powers all of us, but not if we don't let it, not if we tamp it down, block it, repress it, feel shame, guilt, embarrassment, dump all that, be who you are, including who you are sexually, and honestly, it's liberating, it's transformative, it's powerful, and you will see many, many good things happen as a result.
That's fascinating. I think step one, have those conversations in Cannes this week, like you said. That's because it's quite a big thing to take on, isn't it? Where do you start in that journey?
Well, do you know, so again, I've been saying this to people for years, because they go, Cindy, love your mission, subscribe to Make Love Not Porn. If I were an investor, I'd give you money. What else could I do to help? And so I go, it's very simple. Do this one little thing. Every day, talk about sex. But I don't mean literally go out there and talk about sex. What I mean is, if you are having a conversation in the course of your day-to-day life, walking around Cannes, and it would be completely natural within that conversation to talk about sex if we weren't so brought up not to, just do that. And I do my own version of this on social media. So, we all have friends who are celebrating birthdays or having lovely vacations, and everyone's going, happy birthday, or, oh my God, that resort looks amazing. And so I will say, happy birthday, hope you had great birthday sex. Or, oh my God, that beach looks amazing, hope you had great sex on it. Because they did. And the thing is, when you do that, they go, Cindy, yes, of course we did. And people become when you yourself approach it completely naturally and normally, the floodgates open. People welcome it and they respond in kind.
Love that. Love that. It's my motto
Love it too.
for life. Honestly, Cindy, I've taken, I'm sure all of you guys have as well, but I've taken so much away from this conversation. You're my little, I can be your protege. Is that the way around? Am I saying it the right way? I want to be your little protege. Teach me everything you know. Does anyone else want to come to the stage? Because I think we might have time for one more question if you're big, bad and brave enough, which you all should be.
I know that, Cindy, you come from a multicultural background. I myself, I'm proudly in the third generation of interracial marriages. I'm curious to know, when you share the business model of Make Love Not Porn with people from minority cultures that might have a more conservative sexual culture, how receptive are people to it? And are any of the trends that you articulated or challenges either magnified or diluted by cultures from more conservative, with more conservative sexual attitudes?
I'm half English, half Chinese. My father was English, my mother was Malaysian Chinese. I was born in the UK, but when I was 6, my father got a job in Brunei in Borneo. So he moved there and I grew up in Brunei in Asia. Make Love Not Porn is a global platform, and everything I'm tackling are global issues that are felt by everybody all around the world. In 17 years, Make Love Not Porn has been received positively by everybody in every country. My only barriers have been financial, tech, and business ones. And I've had the opportunity to hear from, so my mother was one of 10 brothers and sisters. I have many, many Chinese cousins scattered around, Malaysia, Australia, the UK, etc. And, they absolutely love what I'm doing. And they say to me, the older generation, as in my aunts and uncles, don't talk about it. They say, we all talk about it amongst ourselves and we absolutely love it. And I can promise you that cultures that are perceived as repressed, that is not true of the people within them. Young people have been writing us for years from India, China, Korea, begging us to actually launch local versions of Make Love Not Porn in their own languages, in their own countries. So, this unites us all. Perceived cultural pressure and repression does not operate within the people of that culture. And so I can honestly tell you, I've just had amazing responses, including, by the way, often actually from older people in that culture as well.
Thank you so much, Cindy. And Katie, for your honesty as well. It's been a pleasure to share the stage with both of you. But Cindy, I think what you said has been fantastic. And I think also, just going back to that reminder of stay safe this week, everybody, and have those conversations, but be aware of the context in which you do. But think of Cindy and channel that sort of inner confidence. And where will we all be in a year's time if we practice those habits?
Love that. Motto for the week then, guys. Well, stay safe, but make love, not porn.
Yeah. Woo! Make love, not porn. Woo!
Thank you.
Make Can Lions love, not porn.